So I tend to stack groceries here in the garage. So when we get home, we have bottles, cans, etc. I kind of leave them here. They're in the way of the bug, and it's time to work on the bug. So we gotta get all of this loaded up first. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get started on some fuel lines. So instead of just moving the bottles, I'm going ahead and loading them. So it seems like these front lines are actually under the gas tank, so I think taking out the gas tank might be the easiest. I did jack it up to look under it, but I see the line at the bottom. There are two lines, so there's one from the gas tank to the tunnel in the middle. That one definitely needs replaced. It looks like a fat line though, so I'm a little worried. And then there's another line that looks like a breather to the fill tube. So we're gonna have to look at that one too. So I think the gas tank's coming out. Hopefully it's all the way drained. We're gonna find out. Since it is the front, thankfully I can hose it off if I need to, so we'll see from there. So yeah, let's get this gas tank out, something I've never done. So here we go. Alright, now we have that all vacuumed out, or at least mostly. So we can kind of just see there's no leaves or any of that stuff. And this is the gas tank right here. So, a couple of things I just want to point out while I have the hood open that I haven't pointed out yet is this thing still has the original radio in it. It's all unhooked and everything, but that is the original radio for this car, which is really, really cool. So the dash isn't cut or anything. So if we come around and I'll open it up, that is the original radio for this car. It's Sapphire 1 by Bendix. Has the little buttons, man, pretty fun. And the knobs are still on, this one's loose. There's a company that actually replaces the insides of these old radios with like Bluetooth and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. But yeah, kind of like a little time capsule-y thing in this car is the radio, which is really, really cool. Another thing that I want to point out that I did on the car is this master cylinder reservoir right here. I have the original one still, but it's normally what's known as a single cell master cylinder, so a single. I upgraded this back in, 2018 to have a dual master cylinder, so that way the back brakes and the front brakes operate independently of one another. So I did upgrade the cylinder as well. Typically these bugs have a single cell master cylinder, so if you lose that cell, you lose all your brakes, except for emergency brakes, of course. This one's been upgraded, so that's just kind of in here. It's screwed in and all that stuff. It's not like the nicest mounting system because I couldn't find a bracket for it that I liked. I mentioned previously that I have a 3D printer, so I might 3D print something to do this. We'll see, to mount it with, so it'll be like a nice 3D printed stand, potentially. That's kind of what I have in mind, at least, because it is definitely kind of rigged on there. So we'll see if that happens. I'll try to do it, but yes, a dual cell master cylinder, which is pretty cool. This tank right here, this is the windshield washer fluid reservoir, and it doesn't have the little connector on it, but it does have it back to the windshield washer sprayer. This connector actually has, you can buy one, a connector that connects to your spare tire. So the tank is actually pressurized from your spare tire. And I believe this tank still holds pressure. Maybe I'll try that in a bit too. If I pump it up with just a foot pump from a bike, I think it still holds pressure last time I checked, but that's been a while back too. So yeah, really kind of a neat thing. It ran off your spare tire, which we still need to get, which is kind of cool. So that way you always have pressure for your washer fluid. If you use it too much though, you won't have a spare tire. So, and then this gas tank, it looks like it has one bolt. There's another bolt right here. It looks like it's held in by 4 bolts. So that's what we're going to check out now. This is the sending unit. So this you twist and it should come off. I'll have to do that with 2 ends. And that sends the fuel level to the gauge right up there. So yeah, really cool stuff in here. Let's go ahead and try to get this tank out now and see. Okay, redo here. That thing doesn't twist off. It's actually 4 screws on, or 5 screws on there. Twisting it, trying to twist it around, and that's not how that works. So yeah, and this little lever right here actually, oh, you can hear it move around. That's our fuel gauge. That's really cool. So let's check this out. Alright, and there it is, and it should just kind of curve right out. It's a little float. So we have a little float with that little gauge, and this is what tells you how much gas you have. So if I put it like that, we should have a fuel tank. Let's go look inside because I'm curious. Oh yeah, look, so we have a full tank of gas now. That's pretty cool. It's just all this mechanical stuff on this car. It's fun. Alright, let's get that framed back in. That thing's in good shape, really good shape still, which is awesome. So we're going to leave that to the side, and we're going to double check how much gas I'm seeing in here. It's pretty dry, thankfully. There is a filter down in there. I do have it jacked up, which I don't need to do anymore. So I might actually lower it back down, that way the gas evens out more. But yeah, it's pretty empty now, thankfully. It does look like there is a gasket on here for that sensor. I don't have one, so I'm just gonna leave that in place. Now let's go ahead and get this off the jack stands, since I don't need it jacked up since I'm going from the top. The downside with lowering it off the jack stands is now it's lower for me to work on. It was kind of nice and high before. Another thing you will learn or see is this is kind of low, the hood lip, and if you look at the inside of it, that's not too pleasant to whack your head on. So like, you are going to whack your head. I've done it 3 times just since starting to do this work today. So yeah, kind of fun, I guess. So I didn't know what size this bolt was. It is a 13mm, so when in doubt, just try 13 first on these old cars. All right, we'll get this out now. Oh yeah, we have a lot of spider webs under there, so that should be fun as well. Oh goodness, that is a lot of spider webs. Cool, and I see the line I gotta change. Let's see if I can get this on the camera. There we are. That's the underside of the tank. We can see the line that I have to replace there towards the back. Let's see if it'll focus. There we go. That line's towards the back. And then there's all the brake stuff too. So yeah, let's go and get this vacuumed out too after I remove this. So since there's gas in this, I want it all to go to that one side. That way it doesn't dump when I unplug the hose. So we're trying to do this as cleverly as I can. We'll see if it works out for me. Yeah, we need it to be higher. That might actually work. There we go. So we managed to actually lift that up to where I can get under it, get the hose, and get all that stuff vacuumed. Pretty cool. Ratchet straps are a lifesaver. So yeah, here we are. We can see all that way better now. That ratchet strap's holding it pretty well. The little bit of gas that's up, there's like a tiny bit, is over to that side over there in that corner, so that's cool. So yeah. know my little screwdriver right here fits right over these. That's awesome. That is dry as heck. So we're probably going to get the new one on first. So there's my new line with the hose clamp on it already. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, I have to cut this one off too. So when these are as dry as they are, you almost always, ooh, that shifted. You almost always have to cut them off because they're so dry. They're just like stuck on. So there we go. We don't have any gas leaking. I might hit that with sandpaper real quick too, just to clean it up. Alright, so I have this little sanding pad that I'm just gonna hit it with. There, that way we have a clean surface to kind of get this new hose on. So that should fit nicely. Oh, that's nice and tight. Cool, so that first part's done, and then we just gotta hook it to the tunnel now down here. So I think we can see that. I'll try to focus it more. There still is gas in that hose, so that's one big consideration right now. So I wanted to show this tunnel a little more. So at the very end there is where it hooks to the tunnel, and then the hose is on top. So that's where that gas goes down that solid tunnel, and then the brake lines go into there as well. It's like a really cool way to get stuff from the front to the back. Pretty clever, all protected. So yeah, we need to get this hose off and get this new one hooked up and then get it all put back in place. I'm gonna try to get a cool angle of this, hopefully. There's some gas in that hose. It's way less than leaked last time at least. Oh, I have a new spacer for this part. Let me go get that now. That one's pretty old and crunchy, so I'm glad I'm replacing it. That rubber gasket right there, let's go and get a better angle of it. That rubber gasket protects the metal line from getting all worn on the tunnel. So this car's 60 years old, so it's done a really good job so far. So time to get it updated, so we replaced it, and it should be good for another 60 years, I guess, right? There you go, new line on the bottom of the tank. So now I just need to figure out where to hook this breather hose. Alright, so that new hose is in. It looks awesome. That should be good for a long time more. So kind of like the back ones under the rear tire, you shouldn't have to replace these all the time. They aren't in the engine bay. There's no real fear for what could happen. You know what too? What's funny is I'm sitting here and I realized that I wanted to put a fuel line up here under the front. So we're going to have to splice in a fuel filter because we're filtering at the tank now. So yeah, that line's gonna have to get cut, and then I'm gonna have to put a fuel filter in. So the fuel filter will be up here at the gas tank on this one, and then it'll filter before it goes through the tunnel. So I gotta cut that real quick. Anyway, under here is our master cylinder, so it's way down in there. I think you can see it right there at that middle part of the camera. Let's see if we can get it to focus. So that's the master cylinder. If you're ever working on a master cylinder on a bug, probably just take out the gas tank. Pretty easy to take out, and it's all right there. When I replaced this master cylinder, I worked under the bug on jack stands with the tire removed, and it was a nightmare. I wish I would have taken out the gas tank, come to think of it. So yeah, we gotta splice in our fuel filter. So let's go ahead and get that done now too. So here comes the painful part. Cutting my hose that I just finished. But it's for a good reason. We need to filter the fuel somehow. I think it's worth pointing out that in the tank there is a filter as well. It's just like a strain screen though. So this is a finer fuel filter. There's a little arrow on it. Hopefully that's picking it up to tell you which way it should flow. So we'll get that plugged in here. There we go, and that's pretty snug. And we'll get that in, and it should all just kind of be down in here once we lower the tank. So hopefully it stays pretty contained. So we'll get this in here. Cool, so we'll get that adjusted. And then I believe once we lower the tank, it should be pretty pretty contained. It won't be like too bent or anything, I hope. We'll double check it, but it should hold up. There we go. Now we have a fuel filter that'll just be down there right on this side. You should even be able to access it on the passenger side, which is cool. So that's in there now. The other thing that's on this is this breather line. So if I pull on it, it just comes right out. And what that does is it lets this little breather valve right here let the gas flow. So this is important. So I am going to replace this as well, since it is really old and probably swollen and cracked. But that lets the tank kind of not make the whole hood area smelly, because it goes out under it, but it lets it flow faster. So yeah, we'll get that switched out too. We can see the fuel filter under there. I don't think I can get a shot of that with the camera. But under that side tire, you can see it pretty well, which is cool. All right, and then the breather line's right here. Like I said, this one has some plastic clips holding it. One of them broke, that's great. Those are pretty old too, but yeah, this line is like super dry. It's never had gas going through it, but it is extremely dry. It is a smaller line though. So I take that back. It's a much smaller line. We're probably gonna leave this in place. The end's the most cracked, so if I flip it around, is this one more pliable? Yes. So that's a smaller line than the regular fuel line. I didn't realize that. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll just tuck that under. And we'll feed that through the hole, because that will still vent it just fine. There we go. I might try to find some of those clips too. All right, so we got all of our like wires not under the tank, so that's good news. So we can start getting it secured back in. We're gonna get the fuel cylinder back in. So this book is apparently the go-to resource for rebuilding any air-cooled Volkswagen engine from 1961 and up. So it's I got this off Amazon. It was a good condition one, so used, but honestly it's not in bad shape at all. It cost me like 15 bucks. But this walks you through how to rebuild the engine, all the different components into it. I've never done that before. I'm someone who can do maintenance and some of the stuff that we've seen me do so far. When we started it last, it did have that like, I wouldn't call it a knock, but that like, that noise, that kind of like steady rhythmic noise while running. We've replaced a lot of the parts that it could be potentially, so we kind of have it like we said at that base level, just that baseline. And we still need to start it after I've done all this just to kind of see. The main things were the fuel pump that might have been making noise potentially. So that's been replaced. So I need to start it up again. I'll try to do that the next time I'm working on it. But we are leaning towards it's probably going to need the engine pulled and taken apart, at least to diagnose what's wrong with it. There were metal shavings in the oil that were like a copper color. And from what I've found in all my research is that could be, I'm gonna forget the name right now, but it's a bearing, pulley bearing maybe. I don't remember exactly the name. It's a really thin piece of metal that goes on inside of the engine. There's going to be one for each crank. Someone had one that they just kind of mush out of it and shred. So it might be that. I don't know for sure until we take it apart and diagnose it. So there's a good chance, we're still evaluating it, there's a good chance the engine comes out of this. We get the bug itself out of the way, and then we have the engine in here on a stand and we start taking it apart and figuring out what's wrong and then getting it running better. Before we do any interior stuff, so seats, the rubber seals, all that stuff, we want to make sure it's running decent. Because if it's running decent, having all that stuff done, you can't enjoy it if it's not running decent. So that's going to be one of those next things we do. So this is a book that I've been kind of sifting through right now. And then I'm just going to look at it for all these different things. It even has engine letter codes in here, which is really cool. That way you know what engine you have and everything. Really neat. So we'll go through this book some along the way. But yeah, we knew that it might come down to an engine rebuild, yanking it out and everything. But gosh, doing it is going to be really fun, but also a lot of work. Luckily the engines come out pretty easy, so we'll see. It'll be the first time we've done that. But yeah, all the fuel lines are done on Walt. No more gas smell. It seems like there's been a gas smell the whole time. All the fuel lines are changed. Fuel filter relocated. If you want to change it on this bug, it is under the gas tank behind the passenger tire. So you can change it pretty easy by just taking the passenger tire off or jacking it up and reaching under. Which is nice. It's just right there up front and it filters it right before it goes through the tunnel. No more fuel filter in the engine bay, which is dangerous. So yeah. Alright. There goes my light. Sorry, that must mean we're done. Fuel line's done, and we'll continue on next time.